Today, in this episode, we'll be talking about two lots, the public toilet in Penzance and a parade of 4 shops in Belvedere in Kent.
I would probably put some kind of free changing room and maybe the other half sell ice cream out of. And the reason I don't think it's going to sell is because it sits in no man's land. This doesn't really sit for developers because the time to actually start developing is too far.
So all the local news reporters are hyping it up. Might be able to do a little coffee shop.
Would I buy something like this? Hell to the no.
Good.
So welcome to another episode of Property Auction Hunters. Today, in this episode, we'll be talking about 2 lots that I've brought forward. The first is some toilets, some public toilets that are for sale in Penzance, down in the furthest point of Cornwall that I think you can get to in Penzance. And the second one that I'm bringing forward is a parade of 4 shops in Belvedere in Kent, being sold by Allsop Commercial, which potentially has some development potential. So let's get started. The first lot that I'll be looking at is a former public conveniences or toilets in the lovely location of Penzance in Cornwall. The furthest point you could get to from here. Anyone been to Penzance before?
No.
Never.
Long way away.
Oliver must have at some point.
Down to Land's End.
During COVID as well. Full lockdown.
Well, the good news is, if you want to buy this lot and you're taking a little trip down to Penzance, the first thing you're going to need to do when you get down there is
Use the loo.
have a slash in this toilet. So that's pretty interesting. Do you want to spend 20 grand on it? That's the question. 20 grand it's guided at. Now,
You're underselling it, Omer. There's a big chunk of land as well.
I think you should dump the bad joke.
not much land, right? There's not much land with it, and it's in a very strange, you'll probably see on the screen now, you'll see exactly where it is, but it's right up on the seafront. And there are some lovely views of St Michael's Mount, which is a historic castle that's opposite on a little island. Has anyone been down there? I'm sure you'll know. It's being sold by Cornwall Council. So that's interesting as to why they're selling that off. Ladies and gents facilities both are catered for here in this little building. And God knows what it smells like in there, but it's up for sale. And it's up for sale with Clive Empson Auction, one of my favourite auctioneers, genuine auctioneer that sells some good stock. The question is, what can you do with it and what's it going to sell for? So I'll kick that off then, shall I, guys? I think this is cheap enough to get someone to come and have a look at this and potentially repurpose it into something else. Now, the land is limited. There's not much that you're going to do with it, but it's essentially a little coffee shop down there, maybe for people that are on a touristic walk down to see the mount or the castle. How's that going to be done? Obviously subject to planning and all that sort of stuff, but I think it's going to sell. I think someone could do something with it. You need to punch some windows in, a little bit like the telephone boxes that we've previously reviewed on this channel. I don't think it's going to sell for a fortune, but also if you look at this lot, there's been lots of news publications, all the local news reporters are hyping it up. So I think someone's going to look at it and think, wow, might be able to do a little coffee shop. And if you stay tuned to the end, we'll guess what the coffee shop that you set up there could be called, because that could be quite interesting. I'm going to start this off and say, I think this will sell for £24,000. 20% over the guide.
Okay, so for me, I think this lot is definitely for someone who lives in the area. They will do something amazing with it. I don't know how good this area is for surfing, for things like that. I don't know, can you surf there? It's Cornwall. People surf in Cornwall, but do they surf there? Is the access to the sea? So that's, it could work as something like that, as a store for some sort of bikes, surfboards, something. It could be good for something like that. And I think there will be some local businesses interested in this site, because it's probably, the views, obviously, it's one thing, but also that footfall that goes there is another thing. And this is right next to the station. So I think there's a way of utilizing this for someone local that we have no idea about, and they will find this really, really amazing. This 20k guide price probably came from some sort of surveyor who doesn't see much value in it. They put in the auction the council puts in the auction, and it's going to sell for way more than this. It's going to sell for £47,000.
Okay. So if it was me and I bought it not as a trader, but if I bought it as someone that was going to utilise it, I would probably put some kind of free changing rooms in there on half of it, and maybe the other half sell ice cream out of. Because I think that will bring the footfall. It's close enough to the beach that will bring people that need the changing rooms, and that will buy your ice cream. But that's really if I was going to be using it. I don't think someone's going to be buying this to utilise it. I think it's a very speculative type of property for someone to buy, but I think it's cheap enough that people can speculate on it. I think if this was guided anywhere circa 30, 40 or above, it wouldn't sell. But I think at 20 grand guide, because it's a council, they can afford to do that. They're not looking to make a profit. They're looking to dispose of an asset on their books. So I think a trader might buy this without even seeing it, without even understanding much about it. And I think you might see it into another auction at 10 grand guide or something like that. I think they're willing probably to pay up to around 26k for it. That's kind of where I see it.
Yeah. Interestingly, in Cornwall, there are lots of these that have already been repurposed to coffee shops. Okay. I'm just going to mention that. We go there regularly on holiday, and when people are off the way down to the beach, it's perfect, isn't it, to grab a cold drink, or sometimes you see all your paraphernalia outside, your windbreakers and all that sort of stuff. So I should have dropped that nugget at the beginning for you guys, shouldn't I? But there we go.
Interesting one. So, I mean, I've looked at it from two angles. One, as a trade, myself, if I was looking to bid on that, to buy that, to trade on, I would pay 25,000 for it as a trader. But that's only because I think it will sell for 40,000. That's where I see it selling. I think it's cheap enough. It's not a lot of money for the potential. You've all talked about coffee shops. Yes, there is some potential for that. However, what we don't know is how well established is that coffee shop market locally already. It could be very well catered for. I see it as a retro beach toy shop. Buckets, spades and kites. You've got a lot of beach frontage there. You've got a lot of wind on that front. Beautiful place to go and fly a kite. Retro, environmentally friendly.
Is that inspired from Blackpool?
It's I never got the opportunity to go to Blackpool. My folks never had the money.
Where's everyone going to go to the toilet though? If you repurpose this, they're going to have to go in the sea, aren't they?
Sand dunes.
Jay?
I think this is really interesting. This is, without talking about price to start off with, I think it is going to. There are quite a lot of established businesses there. It's almost like a leisure mafia there. You're going to have a big ice cream kind of shop that's kind of close to the seaside there, and they're going to want to have this as like a satellite unit, which is closer by the beach, where they've got all of the beach paraphernalia that I don't know about coffee, but definitely ice creams and freshly made donuts and all that kind of stuff. I think a trader will not be good competition for a local business person that thinks, right, the council have owned that for time immemorial. This is now coming up. It gives me, I'll put a 15 or 16-year-old in there that wants work experience to just hand out scoops of ice cream, and I'm going to absolutely kill it. And they know it's seasonal business. Yeah. The majority of that time, it's what, 3 weekends a year for the UK where we get sunshine. But at least down in Cornwall, it's treble that, right? Yeah. I think someone's going to pick it up for about 40. Okay. I'm going to say 40 grand. Okay. I think it's going to sell well. Annoyingly, Clive Emerson, that would have been a real faux pas. Clive Emerson are really good at shifting stock like this.
Especially in the southwest.
Especially in the southwest. And you know, they were known as Kings of Kent, and they've really kind of taken that kind of... Now that's it. Now they're really taking that, the borders, they're doing really well.
But interestingly, they still don't advertise on Rightmove.
They don't, but they take up an entire 400 pages in Estates Gazette and other places like that. And they stick to what they're good at.
They have their market.
They have their market, and like I say, for stuff like this, they will absolutely kill it. And I would struggle to think, apart from one or two maybe London auctioneers, who else would actually do exceptionally very well selling something like this?
I would use Clive Empson to sell something like this personally. I'm not the council, that's the only other thing.
No, and normally you'd find like you got the whole marketplace where you'd be buying something regionally and chucking it into London, thinking, right, a London investor will pump out an extra 5 or 10 grand. Not in this instance, I don't think. But yeah, I think it will sell. I think it will be a local business person. I think it'll be 40 grand. And I think Clive Empson will do a good job on it.
Yeah. I'll be interested to hear what everyone that's viewing it would do with it, because I think understanding what people will do with it is obviously going to put the value on what it could be worth as well. So yeah, drop some comments in. Let us know what you would do with it if you were going to be buying it yourselves. And I'll be interested to see how much it sells for on the day. So yeah, we've all agreed again that it is going to sell, which is good.
That's a good spot, Omar. Good spot.
Cool.
So next up is a parade of shops being sold at Allsop Auction. It's lot number 47, and it's 21, 21A, 21B and 21C Picardy Street in Belvedere in Kent. Proximity is very close to Belvedere train station, if you know that area. It's guided at 750 to 850,000. Big old difference in the guide there. It's being sold on 8th of February 2024, and it's currently producing just a 2.2% yield. So it's a very low yield, but there's more to the story. And this is, if you'll see up on the screen at some stage, this is 4 shops, freehold. There is planning approved for 38 flats. Demolition and rebuilding of commercial on the ground floor and 38 flats on the uppers. In the description, it also talks about future residential development on the site, subject to planning permission being approved. It's 160 metres from the local train station. Abbey Wood, very close by for Crossrail. And yeah, to give you a brief summary of what's going on, you've got 4 shops, and you've got one of them, which is the largest one, is tenancy unknown, and it is occupied because there seems to be a business trading there, occupied on terms unknown. You've then got another of the shops which is vacant. You've then got one shop that is currently let to Papa John's, the pizza business, a 125 square metre shop, and that has a FRI tenant lease running out, expiring in 2026. And then you've got the final shop, which is also vacant. So it's messy, right? You've got 4 shops, 2 are vacant, one's tenancy unknown, and the other one's got a lease that's running out in a couple of years. It's also a receivership sale. So there's planning granted. The planning was granted a couple of years ago, and it's expiring shortly. So it's wondering why this hasn't essentially been developed already. And for me, that initially sticks out as a caution, a beware, because you don't know who's trading in the biggest unit. For those who are interested in doing residential development like this, building something without demolishing these units is pretty much a non-starter. We're talking multiple floors of flats to build 38 flats. I'd have a guess, and just off the top of my head, say 38 flats in that area, a mix of 1 and 2 beds. You've got to be pushing 10 million GDV in that area for resale. Your planning's running out. Can you demolish all of them? Bearing in mind, you've got to get Papa John's out, who've got a lease for a couple of years still, and you've got the other one with tenancy unknown. So messy, but certainly interesting at guide. There's things to sort out, but 750 to 850,000. If this is a 10 million pound GDV, it's a very attractive purchase price. Yield is very low at the moment. What could someone do with this? Well, you could try to tackle the problems and find out what the tenancy unknown situation is, and perhaps try to get that person out. Might be difficult. That might be a long lease. We don't know. So that requires some investigation. You could perhaps just view this as a long-term commercial let and get all the units let and get the yield back up and see if you could produce 100 grand in that area. That would be a very decent income from these commercial units. But there's a few complexities with it, and I think it's going to be a challenging one. I think it's going to sell. Okay? I think there'll be a buyer in that area who'll look at this and think the value that it could potentially have as a development site is very large. So I think it's going to sell, and I think it's attractive at that price. It's also, in my opinion, listed in the right auction. Allsop Commercial. This is savvy, developers, commercial investors that know what they're doing. You've got the SaaS, the SIP investors that want to hold this type of stuff. Although it's not perfect right now, it needs a bit of asset managing, if you like. So I'll kick this off and say I think this will sell for about 900,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So what I'm going to say about this property is, even though the tenancies on that commercial unit is unknown at the moment, I'm pretty sure it's so easy to find out who's there, what they're paying, what kind of lease they have. And actually, funny enough, I was speaking recently about CoStar service. CoStar is like a right move kind of thing for commercial property, but it's expensive as hell. It's about £1,000 a month subscription over a year period, and we were talking about the benefits of this. And for this property, you will find a lot of information about this particular property, previous sales, previous marketing particulars, all the kind of information that's going to make you a perfect buyer for this property. And I think someone who's going to buy this, they will have all this information, so they will bid with like the kind of knowledge of what they're buying. So that's number one. But still, I think it's a challenging asset, even though it can be bringing a lot of income. It's got development potential. You have to start really fast to maintain this current planning permission or go for new planning permission. But that's a big cost. You might have to do new surveys, new things. So even though this is a £10 million GDV, I think building this would cost about 6, 7, I don't know, just guessing. And I don't think there's as much money in it as everyone thinks, because the costs are massive. So what I'm going to say is this is going to sell, but this is going to sell for 750.
Okay, interesting. I don't think it's going to sell, personally. And the reason I don't think it's going to sell is because it sits in no man's land. So this doesn't really sit for developers, because the time to actually start developing is too far. So the 2-year lease in Papa John's is maybe one of the reasons why they've even got possessed in the first place, because that's probably the pain in the backside that's led them not to start obviously executing on the planning permission. And it also doesn't sit for investors either, because in reality, you're going to have to do a lot of work to actually get that back up and running as an actual income producing asset, plus the risk involved with the tenancy unknown. I don't really mind tenancy unknown on a commercial, because it's way easier to kind of determine, especially if it's open to the public to go in and speak. And most of the time you kind of, strike a good conversation with people there. Yeah. I don't like the big spread in the guide. I think that's too big of a spread in the guide, and basically they're just trying it on. But the actual reserve will sit anywhere between the 750 to 850. I think it might actually be at the top end of that personally. But I just don't think it will sell at that, because I just think it's just not attractive enough to attract developers or investors, and it sits in this no man's land. If it was guided at 650, I think it will sell at that. I think people will take a punt at that and try and either sort it out and make it attractive to a developer, or sort it out and make it attractive to an investor. But I think that there's not enough in it currently with the risks involved for them to be able to pick it up at that price. So that's me.
I know nothing about commercial. However, I'm going to put my neck on the line and I'm going to say sell 1.25 million.
Wow.
That's a neck and a half.
It's a neck and a half. If I had the cash and unlimited funds to an extent, I'd put 1.25 million in that for the bigger picture. Multiple exit options. You've got the option, of course, of refurbishment and re-let of the existing 4 units. If Papa John's is on 16 grand per annum now, and that's on an expiring lease, there's some different size units there, of course. One's bigger than the other.
Yeah.
You take that as an absolutely really rough average, times that by 4, that's a tidy commercial income, and that's without the development potential. I think there's people out there with lots of money who are prepared to invest in a project like that. I actually quite like it. Doesn't concern me about the occupancy unknown. with commercial. One thing that you would want to look at is the VAT element. I know most auctioneers on commercial lots, they will be very evasive, and they will normally say, and this is without me looking, VAT, refer to legal pack.
It says exactly that. VAT, please refer to special conditions.
There you go. They don't like committing to it.
Yeah.
So usually what that means is like you probably have to pay VAT, and then it will be held in escrow until the real position is found.
Correct.
But it will be a transfer of ongoing concern because you're
Not
buying
really,
it. Would you not?
Because it's part vacant.
Right. Okay.
Part vacant, and then also there's
receive a sale, so they
don't know.
and if you're looking at actually doing the development, then the purpose for the purchase isn't for ongoing income.
But the way around this is to buy this in a VAT company, and you basically would pay the VAT, claim it back. It's going to be just a cash flow issue of waiting 3 or 6 months.
The main thing in terms of your due diligence prior to auction, you would attend the site and you would knock on that unit, occupancy unknown, and you would try and establish some form of contact, communication with them, establish who they are, what are they doing, what are they trading, look at company's house, have they got turnover, have they got assets, are they a liability, or are they potentially a good asset, a good tenant?
Lots of investigation, right? You want to get in there and speak to some local agents. I bet there's a bit of history with this building, and that's what you want to discover. But you don't need to knock on the doors, just walk in, because the shop seems to be open, seems to be trading on the corner, and that's you just get in there and try and find out about them.
The on that plan, the trading plan, it actually says it's a quick save of some, so it's probably just a grocery store paying about 25k per annum.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the other thing is if there is a tenancy or if there is a lease in FRI and it's for more than 7 years, it has to be registered at land registry. So you'll be able to figure out fairly quickly if this is a 5-year lease or if it's more, then you know, because there'll be very basic details on there. And as you say, your local commercial agents are probably the ones that filled the space in the first place. Yes. But the issue that you have with the planning is it's time locked, and it marries up with the lease of Papa John's coming to an end, and we don't know if Papa John's lease is inside or outside the act. We haven't checked the legal pack yet.
Thing to throw into the mix is can you not knock down one of the units that's vacant
and start
the planning application being planned?
Yeah, you could probably even start the footings out the back of the buildings, right, and say planning has started. It
depends on what the conditions are, though. No.
Yeah.
You
would have preconditions
on this type of site with 38 units. I mean, I had a brief look at the planning portal. There's 85 documents uploaded.
That's right.
Yeah, and various superseded documents where they've changed things constantly. It's not someone who hasn't got development experience. This is going to be if someone wants to do this, and they're either going to land bank it until they can build this and go again for planning. It's very unlikely someone's going to start this project until they've got vacant possession, because knocking down one shop and putting up some flats just completely scuppers the rest of the development in terms of the logistics of actually building the rest of those buildings. And since planning, there's been changes to the planning law and to building regs and to the way you construct properties as well. So there's all of that to be taken into consideration.
You can see why me and Oliver don't buy commercial assets.
But one of the things I like about something like this is that there is an alternative use. If you miss the planning, then you just relet the entire lot and hope that you bought and maybe you're in for an 8% yield on the back end. And for a long hold commercial player, 8% in their SAS or SIP, they would take that any day of the week. So, is it a bit punty at that price? I agree with Safe. If you're going to be doing your spread, your range guides, you still keep it within the 10%. I'm just a big fan of following that, and I think he's right. They're being a little bit cheeky. They're not breaking any rules doing that. Would I buy something like this? Hell to the no, because one of the main exits is building out 38 units.
You can do that, Jay.
In my sleep, but it's a case of whether you want to do it, and I absolutely do not want to do it. If we assume the GDV is 10 million, buying this at $1 million, having a build-out cost of 6 to 7 million leaves you with your 20% on GDV, which for most developers, they would take that with a smile. I wouldn't. So even if I had Oliver's theoretical enough money to fanny about with and see what I can do, still anything over 100 grand would be too much money for me on a deal like this. So in that respect, I'm out, but I do think it will sell. I think it makes sense for someone to hit it up at £1 million. And I think that the issues that we perceive as issues, a developer who would knock this down, rebuild maybe even just one large unit like a Tesco or a Sainsbury's, and then puts 38 flats above, these issues with these tenants are grindstones. They'll just go straight over them. So I think there's a market for it. I think that a developer coming in, what they would do is they would buy out the Papa John's lease if they could, and they would sort out the convenience store at the end. They would find a way, because actually, if they buy it for less than £1 million and they're a developer with their own in-house build, their cost to build out would not be 7 million on this. It would be far less. So they could throw in some cash very early doors to solve that tenancy issue and start the build straight away, which would remove the saves point about a 2-year hold, because they would not want to be doing that at all. Yeah. I think it's another good spot.
Interesting. So what do you think, guys? Did you like the content in this video here? If you did, hit the thumbs up, like and share the video, and tell us what you think this property is going to sell for on the day.
So here we are now post-auction. Both auctions have taken place. So what happened? So actually both lots got withdrawn. The one in Cornwall got withdrawn from the Penzance auction, and it's actually going to be reoffered on the 20th of March. So in just on a couple of weeks time. So that one is definitely being reoffered. And usually if a lot like this gets withdrawn and then postponed, it means it was just maybe a legal situation or some sort of necessity to postpone it till the later date. Now, the second lot, the one in Belvedere, also got withdrawn, and it's not going to be reoffered in the upcoming also commercial auction. So one of the reasons why a lot might be withdrawn, especially a lot like this, which this was a receivership sale, is that owner of the property has repaid the loan. They redeemed the loan amount that they needed to redeem in order to basically not be able to offer the property. So both lots are withdrawn. Both were withdrawn for different reasons, and the one in Cornwall will be offered again on the 20th of March. So follow us again for more details. Let us know what you thought about those two properties in the comments, and also let us know what you would like us to discuss in the future. If you have any suggestions, we'll always be happy to listen.